Hi guys, this is Twin Peaks Twin Perspective. I'm Joe,
No, I'm James.
and tonight we are going to be reviewing and recapping Twin Peaks Return, Part 17. The past dictates the future. Full spoilers on everything Twin Peaks. We've watched 17 and 18, and we're going to split up our reviews so it's not so long. And you guys can watch at your leisure. So, what did you think about Part 17? The past dictates the future.
What? I liked it. I liked it. I liked it. It wrapped up a couple things I really wanted wrapped up. Finally got everybody, in one room. If only for a minute. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was the greatest direction of the year. I didn't think it was the best script of the year, but the script held it together. It's hard to talk about 17 without talking about 18. But I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
I give it an 8 out of 10. I liked it. I think some of it was goofy, and especially one part toward the end that just made everything very kooky, but not bad. I think it was something that we expected to happen, an ending, and it happened in 17. There was a lot of stuff unresolved, but I think we all expected something to go down at the sheriff's station. I give it an 8 out of 10. I liked it. I liked the direction a lot. But
Lynch likes to take you kind of hope you see a certain person maybe take out another person, and then he does this little thing where it's somebody completely different than what you thought. And it works and it doesn't sometimes. It does it all the time. When you do it with a Polish accountant that comes out of nowhere, it kind of annoys me because it's like, oh, that could have been better suited for fan service. And I think we got good fan service here with I call it sleight of hand tricks that he likes to do. But we'll get to it as we go through the review.
okay.
Because this does feel like a Mark Frost, David Lynch episode of Twin Peaks. This does feel like both of them kind of had a hand in it.
This is Twin Perspective now. I'm Joe, and he's James. There's a difference, okay?
So I may say some things he does not agree on. Probably most of what I'm about to say for both of these parts.
I'm not going to give him a chance to say everything he wants to say. I've made him throw away half of his notes, though he chose to do that on his own.
Yeah.
Because I proofread him. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, so
they were my notes. They weren't verbatim. I wasn't going to read them, but
I've been known to be a Lynch apologist from time to time, and I'm going to say it when I mean it and if it's real, and so I will complain about some things when we get to certain things. But overall, I kind of expected what happened in 18. But right now, we're going to focus on 17. And there were some things that happened in 17 that I didn't like, but we'll get to all that. We are the ones who love Twin Peaks, and I love David Lynch. And this is our videos. Okay. So,
Fire Walk with Me rules.
That's right. We open up in South Dakota with the FBI who haven't left. They've been stuck there forever. Gordon and Albert and Tammy. And Diane's tulpa just disappeared, so everyone's shaken up
and having a drink over it.
Yeah, they're toasting to the FBI. They're so great, they just eliminated a friend.
No time for tears.
Yeah.
Crack open that wine.
If the Blue Rose Task Force doesn't disappear, we'll just eliminate you. No problem. So Albert wants to know if Gordon's all right. Gordon says he couldn't do it. He couldn't pull the trigger on Diane. Albert says you've gone soft at your old age. And Gordon says, not where it counts.
Okay. I'm sure the French girl knows all about that.
And yeah, they toast to each other. The FBI. We're so brilliant. We're so
Precursor
great.
to the fans too. Of what they're about to receive.
So now Gordon Cole decides to break it down. He's like, Albert, I'm sorry. I've been keeping a secret from you for 25 years, and this is the way it went down. Major Briggs shared with Cooper and Cole that he discovered an extremely negative force, known in olden times as a Jowday.
Yahweh?
But nowadays we just say Judy because we kind of just American slanged it up.
Yeah.
Jowday.
We get lazy with Yahweh. Man, that's too many letters.
Man, I've been looking for that Jowday all day.
Me too. I was looking for that Yahweh. You Judy?
Jody.
Judy.
Jody. Yahweh?
Some say Yahweh.
So it's Judy.
Believe it or not.
Now, this is a plan that Major Briggs coordinated with Gordon Cole and Cooper. Their plan was to lead them to Judy. This is what the Blue Rose Task Force has been doing all along, apparently. It's something that Wyndham Earle did.
Yeah.
It's something that Major Briggs complained about in the second season. He said the Air Force was negative about their interest in these otherworldly places. They wanted to utilize the power for themselves.
Correct. Brings you back to the intent behind the fire.
Right. So I guess Briggs's intent was to find this thing, to isolate it so they could control it or whatever, but maybe not to use the power for themselves, just to
make sure no one gets their hands on it, kind of thing.
Something like that. But I don't trust the FBI at all. Not in this series either. Especially these guys. They're just laying around doing nothing.
Oh,
Okay, so apparently there was a plan put in place. It involved Briggs and Cooper and Gordon.
Sorry I didn't tell you about it 25 years ago, and sorry I'm not going to tell you about it right now either.
Not really.
No, not with the fans listening.
Because what happened was Briggs ended up disappearing, and then Coop ended up disappearing.
And Jeffries
said he was hot on the trail of Jowday, and then
Smeller.
He disappeared.
Yeah, Yahweh was supposed to bring him a letter in Argentina and the missing pieces, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get a message from Judy?
Mm-hmm. And like most supreme beings or boats, you refer to them as females.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And then the ship was supposed to be sailing by Argentina that day, the Great Flying Dutchman, with Judy at the helm.
So this was interesting to me. The last thing that Cooper said to Gordon Cole before he disappeared, the last thing Cooper said to Cole was, "If I disappear like the others, do everything you can to find me. Set up shop in South Dakota and do everything you can to find me."
Everything.
I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone. Now this is interesting. This is what he said to Cole before he disappeared 25 years ago. And the giant left him a clue, and one of the clues was two birds with one stone. Yeah, that's timeline warping right there. And we might save some thoughts. We thought
so many, and it's so hard to do this review right now and not want to jump into those.
But if this is the last of Twin Peaks, then we're going to have the rest of our lives to try to figure it out and to dissect it. But we're going to have to come up with something for thoughts we thought, for sure.
Oh, my gun just went off.
But that was
the thought of season 4 made my gun go off.
That's what my brother calls a Lynch sleight of hand. The show was interrupted with a gun going off. I thought that was interesting that he would use that phrase, two birds with one stone. Then anyway, so Cole gives up the rest of the story they have a paid informant, named Ray Monroe, and he tipped them off cryptically that the coop that they saw in prison was looking for coordinates that Major Briggs had. So Ray tipping them off to this makes him know that Mr. C was looking for the coordinates that Major Briggs had. So did everybody think the coordinates led to Jowday? Because that's what Mr. C wanted all along. We were told Briggs wanted to get away from where he was at. He was in the room above the convenience store. He wanted coordinates so he can go to the White Lodge, and that's where he ended up. But they were all looking for Jowday. I still don't know where Jody is. I think Judy's in Sarah Palmer, right?
Oh,
Is that where we're going with it? So anyway, Tammy.
I know.
Wait a minute. Oh, we get the phone call from the Las Vegas hospital. The FBI is there. Headley tells Gordon they so proudly found Dougie Jones, except they don't know where he is. But they have all the information on him, and they're sending it to him, and they're real proud about that. And then Bushnell hears the name Cole and says, "Is that Gordon Cole?" He gets on the phone. They shout at each other, which is great. And Bushnell reads the note that Cooper left for Cole. It says, "I am headed for Sheriff Truman's. It is 2:53 in Las Vegas." That adds up to 10, the number of completion. That's it. So the number of completion is 7, right?
Yeah.
We know that. So I'm not quite sure what that fucking meant at all.
Yeah, here's Bushnell said Lucky 7 Insurance.
And the fact that he wrote the note at 2:53 Las Vegas time means nothing to me at this point.
No, doesn't. It opened, that's the time you're supposed to be there for.
Right. Okay, so yeah, it's one of them things like red balloons, right? The red balloons were supposed to mean something. Well, whoever writes a thesis on this shit can tell me what the red balloons meant.
They mean something in it. I'm going to see that this weekend.
That'll be a more linear storyline, right?
Looking forward to that. The Saints, come on. You never know what you're going to get with them.
We might actually get good defense with the Saints this year.
Woo!
Wouldn't that be a doppelgangerish thing that happened? Okay, so this is funny. So after the FBI, Las Vegas FBI hangs up with Gordon, Tammy gets on the computers to figure out about Dougie Jones, right? So all of a sudden she's plugged into exactly who this Dougie Jones is. And
16 hours worth
and
of
literally-
television and
literally like 8 seconds, she has the whole story on Dougie Jones.
that's
which
what all
took-
those computers were for.
Which took 4 or 5 parts for anybody to figure anything out about. And just like that, man, bam. Tammy gets the scoop on Dougie. And up till him electrocuting himself and everything and being in a coma. And when she says Dougie stuck a fork in a socket, Albert said, "That's strange even for Cooper."
We're so close.
So then Gordon says, "Pack it up. I know where they are. Or I know
Brilliant.
where he's going."
You're so brilliant.
He finally figured it out. Truman called him like days ago, but whatever.
I don't know. They had coordinates to a place in the northwest part of northwest.
Somewhere around that sheriff station that we know all about. And
We'll just stick around here until the last minute before we go.
And Cole's excited because he knows, all this stuff started happening right when the 2 Coopers started popping up. And he says, "This is a Blue Rose case for sure." Well, we might as well get on it. So that's where, I guess they're going to Twin Peaks now. That's where they're supposed to be heading, right? Then we go to Twin Peaks, the sheriff's station. We see Chad in his cell, and the drunk across from him is sleeping. And Chad looks like he's trying to position himself to do something sneaky, and then the drunk wakes up. And Chad gets pissed, and the drunk, of course, mocks him.
That no one hears.
Repeatedly, right? That no one else acknowledges.
Except for Nido and Chad.
No, Naito doesn't
She never
acknowledge
really
the drama.
acknowledges them. No, she doesn't. He acknowledges everyone. More on that later.
Then we get the electricity sound, and we get the dark road, and it's Mr. C, and Mr. C's driving, and then we kind of flash back to the sheriff's station again, and Naito's kind of starting to chirp a little, like she's picking up on something. James and Freddie notice Naito. I'm calling her Naito because Nye rhymes with blind. There you go.
The electricity wires, though, that we saw when Evil Coop was driving, was the same that Andy saw in the White Lodge.
Well, we saw it in the last episode too, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so we're definitely building up to Andy's revelations.
Yeah, to the present in his past, present, and future video show he saw in black and white.
And James and Freddie notice Naito, and what the hell is that? I don't know, mate. Okay, then we go to the Great Northern, and
That Asian monkey.
Ben is on the phone with a Jackson Hole police.
Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
A Sergeant Williams. He's called to say there's a guy here that says what did he say? He won't give his name, but he says that you're his brother, and that he thinks his binoculars killed someone. And when he said that, Ben said, "Oh, that's Jerry. That's my brother." Oh, he said binoculars killed someone? Yeah, that's my brother, all right. Crazy guy. Apparently, he was picked up naked, so Ben's got to send clothes when he goes to get him. And Wyoming is quite a ways away. He'd have to cross Montana to get to Wyoming.
Yeah, or go through Idaho. Still, Wyoming is underneath Montana.
There's no way he made that trek. And the fact that he showed up naked reminds me of Naito showing up naked. So I'm thinking he must have gone in a vortex somewhere and popped up in Wyoming.
Yeah. Oh, I got some good thoughts on thoughts we thought you didn't think of when it comes to Jerry.
And that was it. We're done.
And that was probably written by Mark Frost, too.
We're done with horns.
It was a nice send-off for Jerry. He's still in the woods. He's still out there. He's naked now. Somebody's going to pick him up, bring him home. He's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. And he's probably going to start munching on his edibles again. All right, now it's daytime, and we see Mr. C's Silverado parked on the side of the road by the woods.
Dun, dun, dun.
And we get a little walk in the woods where we see Jack Rabbit's palace again. And we see where the coordinates led. It's the entrance to the White Lodge with the gold pond and the big-ass sycamore. And there's Mr. C, and he enters into it, and there's a little time jump thing when he's standing there, and then all of a sudden the vortex opens. Must be 2:53 on October 2nd.
Must be. They forgot to go back.
Yeah, they weren't interested in going back. So Mr. C, all of a sudden, boom, he's in the White Lodge. But he's in a cage. And Major Briggs has made it to the coordinates. He's there, just his head. But he's there, safe and sound, in a place he wanted to be. And the giant's floating in the air again.
The fireman.
The fireman, who will always be known to me as the giant, is floating in the air. And then the cage begins its journey into the golden pipes. And it gets redirected. And instead of the screen up at the time is the entrance to the White Lodge. And the screen changes to right outside the sheriff's station.
But it was at Sarah Palmer's house for a second, wasn't it?
Oh, you know what? The giant was... It went to the Palmer house after the entrance. That's right.
We moved it, Palmer House, and
he moved it again to the sheriff's station. That's right.
Don't know if that means anything. I don't know if things were slippery there, but
like, there's where Judy is. Oops. I meant to skip over that one.
I was looking at that earlier.
It is strange that the White Lodge deposited him. Now, I know ultimately he was supposed to go there because Freddie's there with the glove, and it's all been predetermined by Briggs and Cooper and Cole, apparently. It just seems to defeat the purpose, right?
It totally takes Cooper out of the equation. Good Cooper. Right. He was never needed.
Yeah, and Mr.
Except
C,
to bring the ring.
Mr. C didn't need to kill all them people for the coordinates because the White Lodge wanted his ass there anyway. He would have just shown up at the sheriff's station regardless.
And I thought it was a trap as soon as he showed up. And when I see him in a cage, it's like, oh, those two coordinates were right. So maybe he was supposed to get zapped where Richard got zapped.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently not, because this is where he wanted to go, where Major Briggs was. And he made it. And they didn't accept him, like a disease or something. Immediately
Rejected him.
Rejected him right back to exactly the same time that he was.
Right.
Same timeline.
Right. It seems to me like the fireman has to preserve a balance. He's not just putting out the fire. He's depositing the evil right back into the world, right? Of this doppelganger. I mean, why couldn't they? So anyway, there you go. Some questions. But there is Mr. C. He's outside the sheriff's station, and Andy's in the parking lot. Mr. C almost goes to grab his gun for a second until he realizes Andy's goofy. Agent Cooper, is that you? Oh, everyone's going to be so excited to see you. We've just been talking about you. Mr. C walks in, and there's Lucy.
Wearing that shirt, that sweater that she had in the dream.
That we knew she'd be wearing. And she's excited to see Agent Cooper. And then Sheriff Truman walks in. There's the introduction there. Sheriff Truman invites Mr. C to sit down in his office. And Andy and Lucy are just sitting there, just giddy as can be. And all of a sudden, Andy starts to remember something. He remembers placing Lucy in a certain spot from the footage in his White Lodge visit. He remembers putting Lucy in a spot.
Yeah, which he doesn't really ever do.
Or perhaps he did. He showed her. At some point he showed her what was going to happen, so she would know what to do. But she sprung into action. But the phone call helped with that too. But anyway, yeah, that's what happened. We saw he got the image of the Lucy placement. And the whole time they're cutting back and forth from what's going on in the sheriff's station to what's going on downstairs in the jail cells. Chad has pulled a key out of his boot. And the whole time NATO's going nuts because Mr. C's in the house. Mr. C's in the house, so she's going.
Yeah,
and the drunk fell asleep. And James and Freddie are distracted by Naito, and Chad, with a key in his boot, lets himself out of his cell.
He bought those boots from the one-armed man who was selling Leo his boots because they had compartments and such.
So he lets himself out of the cell and goes around where no one can see him into the weapons storage, which is right next to the jail
conveniently located.
And he grabs himself a weapon. Now Andy's excited because Coop's in the building, so he's running around looking for Hawk. And right before Andy runs downstairs, he asks Mr. C he asks Cooper if he wants some coffee. And Cooper says, "No, thanks.
I'm all right."
I'm all right. Wow, that's a red flag.
Yeah, Frank wouldn't know of such a red flag.
And immediately Andy says, "I'm going to tell Hawk you're here." So Andy runs downstairs. Chad's got his gun. Now before Andy goes downstairs, he stops and looks at Lucy and says, "Very important, very important."
To me, that indicated he had just told her something. And we weren't privy to what the conversation was.
Or he just showed her what he was going to show her.
Yeah.
Which would have been an image of the future no matter at all or something. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
He makes sure she stays at her station or something.
That phone call coming in is going to be really important.
Yeah, very important. Right? So we're not sure. But then Andy does make it downstairs and Chad's there with a gun. And Chad starts to chastise Andy and call him down. And you can see Freddie's getting ready with that green glove. And as soon as Chad's in position, Freddie punches his jail cell door, which swings open and cracks Chad in the face. Chad loses his gun, hits the ground. He's knocked out cold. James is all smiling, Freddy. And
I really thought we were talking about could he bend the bars, and it wasn't until we got down there for this episode that I thought, yeah, he just punched the gate open. It probably would be easier to break that lock than to bend it, and sure enough, that was great.
And then Andy handcuffs Chad. And then Andy says, I have to get all of you upstairs.
All of you.
All of you.
Except for Chad.
All right, Chad stays chained up. And he brings everyone upstairs.
No sign of the drunk.
Nope.
Guess he wasn't important.
Nope.
If he existed.
He didn't exist. Because he did not show up upstairs with everybody else. Just leave him there to bleed out.
He said, I got to get you all up here.
Now, the whole time Chad was getting his gun, the drunk pulled off his bandage and started picking at his sore. And that was the last we saw of the drunk. I think he repeated what Chad was saying when Chad was walking to Andy with the gun. And I thought Chad was going to shoot towards the cell, which would have been empty, right, where the drunk was supposed to be, and then Andy could have drawn his weapon and shot Chad. I thought something like that was going to happen. And then I thought, well, there you go. That was Freddy's destiny right there. I really thought that Freddy wasn't going to amount to much more than what he just did. Could he have? Really?
Yeah, I mean, we're less and less needing Coop at this point. The giant seemed to figure it all out.
So Andy gets everyone upstairs, and then the phone rings, and Lucy answers it. The whole time Mr. C's having the conversation with Truman. You can tell they don't trust each other. They won't quit looking at each other. Lucy gets the call, and it's from the real Dale Cooper. And he says, I just entered into town. You got a pot of coffee going? He's ready. And Lucy knows right away that that's really Cooper. And when she realizes there's a Cooper in the room, but there's also a Cooper on the phone, it registers in her head how cell phones work. Because she realizes, no, he's not there. He's somewhere else. And yeah, that was great. I love how they pulled that off.
So weird. Cooper could have quickly, in a span of 10 seconds before she even connected him to Frank, could have explained cell phones to her in a way that she understood.
You never know. But she connects the call to Truman, and Truman's like, take a message. And she says, no, it's very important. So Truman answers, and he realizes he's talking to another Coop, and that this is the real Coop on the phone. And Mr. C pulls his gun way quicker than Frank.
Yeah, he says, no, this is Harry's brother. And that's when Coop realized this is somebody looking. Yeah. It was intense.
Now, when Mr. C pulls his gun, he shoots, and we see the flash come out of his gun. And Truman's hat moves like he just got shot. But then we see Mr. C hit the ground, and it's Lucy holding a gun who shot Mr. C. Even though we saw Mr. C's gun deliver a bullet, it flashed.
Must have nicked his hat.
I didn't see a hole in the hat after, but
Me neither.
It was trickery, in my opinion, trickery. And there's Mr. C. He's shot, and she must have shot him good because he's dead. Good job, Lucy. Then everybody shows up. Andy shows up, and he's brought everybody upstairs. And
Our eclectic bunch.
You've got James, you've got Freddy, you've got Dido,
Naido,
whatever her name is. And then Andy lets James hold Nido so Andy can go to comfort Lucy. And that's when Lucy reveals, I figured out how cellular phones work.
Great payoff.
Now, at this point, Andy runs out. Like, he runs out the room. And Hawk shows up. And Hawk was going to approach Cooper, and Truman says, no, don't touch him. Cooper said not to touch him. And Hawk's like, but that is Cooper. Which is like, okay, you were the first one to realize there were two Coopers, right?
Right.
This should be heavy on Hawk's mind, but I guess Hawk's seeing Cooper for the first time and going, this is Cooper. And Truman's like, no, not the real Cooper.
In the office pool, Lucy being the one to kill Evil Coop would have been like, you'd have been a big payoff. 50 to 1 odds. But Hawk not even being there, or Bobby for that matter. And then to have Hawk show up and not even remember what he taught everyone the whole season was that there were two Coopers. He was going to go right on in. I'm just, okay.
And Hawk knows about Judy.
Yeah. I guess if Judy is the experiment.
Okay, so all of a sudden the woodsmen show up. The lights dim. And the woodsmen start rubbing all over Mr. C. And you get the slow down Moonlight Sonata. Boom, 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 boom. And then Coop's pulling up outside. And it's really dark outside too. It's the effect of the darkness in the room has affected the outside.
Yeah, I did like that shot.
And
because we knew at that point we had seen the clock was 2:45.
And Andy must have ran out the room because he's waiting in the entrance to greet Cooper. And Coop's first words to Andy are like, Andy, where are they at? You know, it's so not fan servicey at all. But anyway, Cooper runs into the room. He sees the woodsmen doing their thing. Then the woodsmen disappear. And the Bob ball comes out of Mr. C. Boom, out of his stomach. He's birthed. And he's floating around. And the Bob ball immediately hits Cooper. So Cooper showed up just quick enough to get this knocked on his ass. Boom! Oh!
So I'm kind of wonder if you put the ring on him before Bob Ball came out, if it would have taken them both back. Neither really here nor there because he was a little late and just showed up in time to get hit. I thought for sure Bob was in him when he got hit that first time. Even though we still saw Bob, it's like you got touched by the evil one.
So in true Freddy fashion, he's not going to stand by and see this happen. He says, "Oi!" And then the Bob ball turns to Freddy. And the Bob ball attacks Freddy. And Freddy's getting his ass kicked at first. Bob ball is drawing blood. And then Cooper gets up and Cooper says, "Are you Freddy?" And Freddy says, "Oi, yes, and this is my destiny."
Me destiny.
It's me destiny. And he's punching the Bob ball.
He said, "God save the Queen." No. God save the Queen.
So that's great. He gets a good hit in. Then the Bob ball hits him back. Oh, and he's down. And Cooper's like, "Get up, Freddy."
Yeah, all of a sudden there's a Rocky.
And then I was expecting Gonna Fly Now to kick in. All right, so Freddy gets up and he gets Bob ball good. I mean, he hits him so hard he knocks him straight to hell because there's a hole in the floor and a fire starts coming out. And I'm thinking, oh, you just knocked Bob back to hell. This is great. But then the Bob ball comes out again. And it's glowing red inside the black now. It's like a Bob ball on fire from hell. And he speaks and says, "Catch you with my death bag." And he hits, I think, before or after he says it, he hits Oi again, Freddy. But then
After he says it.
And then Freddy punches him one more time, and it blows him up into big chunks that float up into the sky and dissipate.
Which doesn't really mean a thing.
Right.
Who knows? Bob's loose again. You let him go again.
Well, unless Cooper gives us the confirmation, because Coop says, "You did it, Freddy."
I did? Did
I
I do it?
did. Yay!
I did it. I did it. I did it. No fan service for no fan, Twin Peak fan service. I did it. I'm Freddy. Woo!
So that was great. And then
Putting the ring
I'm
on.
thinking at this point, because Coop puts the ring on Mr. C and Mr. C disappears. And by then, the Mitchum brothers
One of the
showed up.
grandkids.
Mitchum brothers showed up just long enough to see the Bob ball get destroyed. And then when Mr. C disappears, Rodney says, "That's one for the grandkids." And then, okay, at this point,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. C's gone. Bob is destroyed.
Yes.
We've won.
Yes. It's over.
It's over. At this point, the light should come back on.
Mm-hmm.
Coop should look at all of these people he hadn't seen in 25 years.
Coffee pot in the bag should have gone ding.
Mhm.
Ready?
Yep. Then the girls could have came in with sandwiches and
Donuts, man.
I mean, well, yeah.
They should have brought donuts.
Yeah, then Norma should have walked in with pie. And I mean, it should have been wall to wall, falling. And there should have been hugs.
Hugs, and Michael Cera could have came in. Hey,
Michael
look,
Cera,
just in time. Meet our
Or at
kid.
least show them the Photoshop picture. Coop's in town. There's no pressing need at this point.
None.
Everything's solved.
And it's understood. Everything had its meaning, too. How you got to this point. It was, we needed sacrifices. There were sacrifices that needed to be made. Some things will change. The log lady's not going to come back.
No, I didn't get to that line yet because this is where
Okay,
I stopped.
okay.
This is where I stopped the review of the episode because this is the point where, like we said, it's over. Everything that the series was building up to, the main, protagonist, whatever is antagonist, it's over. We've won.
Right. Ray couldn't deliver the ring, so we got Coop to do it.
It's over. Bob's destroyed. Doppelganger's back.
Freddy's cool. James is still uncool.
James will never be cool.
Sorry, James.
But what happens instead is Coop immediately turns to Truman and says, "Hey, you've got the key to room 315? How did you know?" "Well, Major Briggs told me that Sheriff Truman would have it." Oh. It's a Betty Briggs moment that didn't feel anything as good as Betty Briggs because at this point I'm like, okay, he's getting a souvenir, I guess. So he gets the key and then he just tell Harry I said hi or whatever.
Give my best to Harry.
Give my regards to Harry, that's right. No, he actually tells him that right before he leaves the room. But I mean, that's all the acknowledgement we get with Coop and Truman. The key exchange, and then, give my regards to Broadway.
I have to say at this point, Evil Coop is gone, which means that the superimposed good Coop, which was mostly Dougie, had all these good things happening and magic and everything. But now that he's Coop again, I'm not saying that Evil Coop is in him, but he is more human now that Evil Coop is gone. And he immediately starts making dumb human mistakes. So continue. That was I just need to, because I didn't care for that when he said, "Give my regards to Harry." It's like, no, Coop wouldn't have said that.
I shouldn't have thrown that in there because he didn't quite say it just yet. He gets the key from Frank, and then outside we see the FBI pull up, and then inside again, Coop turns and sees Nido.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I don't know what the hell happens. Because Cooper's face becomes superimposed on the screen.
As soon as he sees something that reminded him of the lodge.
And it's the same face he was making when he was talking to the tree and he was recalling the doppelganger.
Remember.
And at this point, I'm like, okay, Coop must be the dreamer, and this is all his dream. And he never left the lodge. He just imagined all this happening because now his face is superimposed. It's almost as if he's, recalling this story from another place or whatever. And
Like the Wizard of Oz, everyone comes, look, Gordon.
Yeah, right. And it's just, and that's exactly the send off we get. I mean, there's nothing. All of a sudden, he has another agenda, and it has to do with Nido. So after the superimposed face of Cooper, everything else that happens, I don't understand. Bobby comes in and says, "What's going on around here?"
Cameo.
And Bradley says, "You took the words right out of my fucking mouth." Then Coop addresses Bobby long enough to say, "Hey, your dad knew all of this was going to happen." Yeah, he knew it.
No cutaway, no cut back to Bobby to see a little
Yeah, Briggs was well aware of what was going to happen.
welling
today.
up or.
Everybody's gathering around, and Coop's like, "Now, some things will change.
Hawk's like, oh, yeah.
The past dictates the future." The girls walk in with sandwiches. "Glad we have a bunch of sandwiches." No, Coop's leaving. Everything's solved, but he's not staying. He's going to leave. "Give my regards to Harry." That's what he says. He's got the key.
Did he change Nido to Diane?
No, then Nido fights her way to Dale. And they touch, and then her face disappears, turns into the Black Lodge. You see an image of Diane and a black thing in the Black Lodge, and then all of a sudden, Nido's Diane. So I guess she was trapped in that other state, and now she's Diane again. See, everything that happens after this, I don't like at all. So Coop's like, "Diane," and Diane's like, "It's you, the one and only Cooper." And
After that, big long wet
yeah,
kiss.
they make out in front of everybody.
God and everybody.
And then Mitchum's like, "Does Janie know about this?" And then he asks Diane, "Do you remember everything?" And she says, "Yes." What does that mean? Do you remember everything? Do you remember everything you Tulpa did?
Everything we talked about in episode 3 when
Yeah,
I was going through the socket.
Right. Do you remember everything that happened to you in the last 21 years when you were in a purple room with no eyes? Is that what he meant?
Whole time, superimposed face.
Yeah, the superimposed face. It fades away for a split second. Right when he's asking Diane, "Do you remember everything?" Yes. And then the clock's stuck on between 2:52 and 2:53. It's stuck in that position.
It's where he was before he left.
The face came back, and that's when we see the clock is stuck. That's when the face says, "We live inside a dream." And Coop looks at everybody in the Wizard of Oz and says, "I hope I see all of you again." All of you. Each and every one, even Tammy.
Yeah.
I haven't even met yet.
Which, when he says each and every one of you, Tammy is front and center for some reason. We're seeing people he didn't even know. You could have fan serviced us a little bit and just had our most important. I mean, you got Cole, Albert, Hawk, Bobby, Lucy, Andy. No Frank. We don't need Frank in that shot. We don't need Tammy in that shot.
Cooper didn't even bother to have coffee with Andy and Lucy and Bobby. He doesn't care about them at all. He's dead set on leaving with Diane.
At this point,
I guess.
yeah. Okay, I'm fixing to go change all of your lives. Things won't be the same. I might not see you again, but this is my timeline, so I'm going to go fuck with it.
So maybe some of you think it's obvious that he had a job to do. Cooper's real job was to find Laura. Maybe we're being too hard on him because he needed to leave this reunion to go and find Laura immediately. Girl's been dead for 25 years, but he's got to leave immediately. I don't know. Be hard if you want. Be hard if you want about it, but I mean, like I said, after that superimposed face pops up, everything went to shit. So, yeah.
Still we're hanging on because we still have an hour left. You know, we don't know what's going to happen in 18 at this point.
Well,
so
there's a good chunk of this episode left.
Yeah.
He says, "I hope to see all of you again," and then the lights start to flicker, and Coop says, "Gordon," and Gordon says, "Coop," And then all of a sudden, we're in a dark room, hallway, and it's just Cooper and Diane and Gordon. And we still got Coop's superimposed face. Well, they're walking in the basement of the Great Northern because they're approaching the door that James found. And Coop uses his room key on it, and it unlocks it.
I guess no one ever went in that room and cleaned it. They just couldn't get in there. That's why James didn't go in. No one had a key.
No one had a key. No one ever went in there.
Superimposed face. When did it actually dissipate? Around the same time, right? When they were walking.
It dissipates when he goes in the room. Yeah,
okay.
When he goes back to the other side.
Where he was to begin with.
So he turns to them before he leaves. He says he didn't want either one of them to follow him. And he hugs Diane. He shakes Gordon's hand. Gordon says, "I'll be thinking about you."
Not, where are you going, Coop? What are you about to do? Everybody's waiting.
Clue us in on the
There's 500,000 people watching right now. You want to let them in on and let me know at least?
He opens up the door and the sound is absurdly loud. And he turns to Diane and he says, "I'll see you at the curtain call." And then he closes the door.
Don't bring Cole for some reason. Why? Cole's right there. How would, if you're investigating the Blue Rose case, wouldn't you be at the curtain call? I'm not doing your job.
Like I said, once Cooper's face is superimposed, I don't know what's real anymore about any of this. Because this is under the Great Northern, for Pete's sake, right? So there's an entrance to the lodge under the Great Northern. And it's through this door that no one can beat down with a sledgehammer if you're trying to. The maintenance couldn't find the sound.
Yeah.
Maintenance never goes down there in the boiler room.
Nothing ever had to be fixed in that room.
So anyway, they're in the room now, and this is a dark room, and the one-armed man shows up. And he speaks clearly. It's not lodge talk. And he says the Fire Walking poem. Through the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire, walk with me.
Then he takes a walk with him.
Mm-hmm.
The magician.
They go
Camera
down.
did cut to Coop when he said the magician.
I've always said Coop's a magician, and yep, he's walking all over the place, longing to see.
Yep, keep it in your pants, man. The show was over. We fixed everything. No.
Except
vanity kicks in.
We didn't have pie and coffee. We didn't go to the Double R. We didn't do any of that. So,
but everything that screwed with Coop in the first 2 seasons, which screwed him up, because you got to be pure when you go in these places. But he had skeletons in his closet. And evil Coop disappears, and all of a sudden he starts acting on human things that will poison your soul, like vanity. I've got to save. I digress.
I've got to save a girl that died 25 years ago. Leave me alone. I'm on my way.
No time for coffee.
They're in the hallway that leads to the stairs, and then the stairs leads to the outside.
But the
jumping man comes down the stairs after they go up the stairs, and he looks in a hurry, pissed. It's all shaking, and there's electricity and shit. And then they go outside. The one-armed man and Coop go outside, except they don't go to the hotel room number 8. They go another way. It's like a back way into the room or something. They show up, and they are in the room with Jeffries, the tin machine. And Cooper says, "Jeffries?" And Jeffrey says, "Please be specific." And Cooper
Philip
says,
Jeffries.
And Cooper says, "A date, February 23rd, 1989. And Philip Jeffries says, "I'll find it for you. It's slippery in here."
I think Jeffries is slippery.
It's good to see you again, Cooper. They've never really met, except for that one time he popped up in the FBI headquarters.
That indicates more than twice, and not just when Evil Cooper showed up and he's mistaking him. Goodale's been doing this crap a lot. He probably pops up in here all the time.
Maybe so. Maybe he's been working with Jeffries.
Oh, Major Briggs, the 25th time you want to jump. Okay, I'm going to send you here.
Then he tells Cooper, say hello to Gordon if you see him. He'll remember the unofficial version. Okay, which means that whatever timeline Cooper's about to screw with, when he does meet Gordon, he'll remember his reality, and Coop's going to have to remind him of the official version, the Blue Rose version, I guess. Cooper's reality at this point or something, I don't know.
Right.
Right, so...
I don't know which one of them is the dreamer. Cole would be like, wait a minute, I'm the dreamer.
So Coop says this date, which is the night Laura died. Technically, she died on the 24th, but it was early in the morning. This was February 23rd, which is right before she snuck out of the house, right before midnight. And it seems like that's what Cooper was wanting. He was wanting to go back to the night Laura died so he could help Laura. But when Jeffries is dialing this date up, he says, this is where you'll find Judy. There may be someone. Did you ask me this?
No.
And then the smoke makes an owl cave symbol. Then the little wings come off of it to make two triangles. Then the two triangles turn into an 8, or which could be an infinity sign.
Mm-hmm.
Then a little ball appears in the infinity sign. And then I think the infinity sign spins around or something. And then the ball starts to move until it gets to a certain spot. And he says, there it is. You can go now. That infinity sign spinning around made me think, yeah, it doesn't matter which spot you want to go to. It's going to pop up wherever the hell it pops up. Then he says, Cooper, remember. And the Wonder Man says, electricity. Then and we see the fan in the Palmer house. So that's where Cooper went through the fan in the Palmer house. Whoop, and all of a sudden he gets to see where Laura's at, I guess. And Laura's sneaking out of her house, and it's 1989, and she's jumping on the bike with James and taking off. And Leland's watching her leave.
Bob is watching her leave.
Yeah, Bob, who is alive at this point and possessing Leland, is watching Laura leave.
Yeah.
Okay. So then they proceed to play about 6 minutes of Fire Walk With Me, which I didn't mind because I love that movie.
Yeah, and they were showing some, scenes they didn't keep. Like, they take 5 or 6 takes, and
I guess they were showing other versions of the same scene or whatever,
yeah,
or just extended shots, whatever was edited out.
It wasn't good enough to put on the missing pieces.
It's all Fire Walk With Me. It's the same thing. And so Laura gets out to the woods and has her talk with James. And at one point during this talk, she looks into the woods and screams because she realizes she's in the woods. And she knows that Bob finds out, and she's about to tell James about Bob, which she doesn't want to do, and it freaks her out when she realizes she's in the woods, and she says he finds out, and so then she starts brushing James off because she really loves him, and tells him, fuck you and all this stuff, so that James could get lost because she really cares about him. Now that's what happened. She screamed because she realized she was in the woods. But this time around, in this timeline, she screams because she sees Cooper, who's in the woods watching her. He must have drove a car to the woods, or maybe he popped up in the woods.
He just flew.
It showed the ceiling fan electricity, so I thought he went through the ceiling fan. But
It keeps popping up where telephone poles are, I guess.
So he's watching Laura and James have this moment, and then they take off. They get to the light at Sparkwood and 21, and then Laura decides to jump off the bike and says, "No, just no, James, leave me alone." And then, "I love you, James," and she takes off running in the woods. And anybody that saw the movie knows that she meets up with Leo and Jacques and Ronette in the woods, and then they go to the cabin, and then that's where Leland finds her and takes her from there to her death.
Right. And she didn't see Cooper in the Fire Walk with Me because Cooper didn't show up and save her later.
Right.
So she wasn't looking at Cooper then.
Yeah.
She did the exact same thing, but what happened to Cooper then? If she saw him in the original movie, but she still died, what happened to Cooper?
She didn't see Cooper in the original movie. She saw him in The Return.
Got to salvage our movie.
So, Jacques and Leo and Ronette are there, and they're waiting and waiting, but Laura never shows up because on Laura's trek, Cooper's there. And Laura sees him and says, "Who are you? Do I know you?" She says, "Wait a minute. I saw you in a dream. In a dream." And Coop puts his hand out to her. And Laura takes his hand. And then we switch to the pilot of Twin Peaks. They show a stump with Laura's body laying there, and the body disappears. Everything's in color now. We go back to the woods, and Laura asks Coop, "Where are we going?" And Coop says, "We're going home." Then we go back to the pilot.
Where's home? Okay.
Home is the White Lodge, I guess, because that's where he's taking her to the entrance to the White Lodge. But then we go back to the pilot, and we see Josie, and we see Pete Martell, and he's telling his wife Catherine that he's gone fishing. And he goes outside and he walks, and there's no body to see, so he ends up fishing.
Yeah.
And then we go to the Palmer house. And this isn't the pilot, this is the return. This is the future. And we can hear moaning and screaming, and it's Sarah Palmer. And eventually she comes into the room and she grabs the homecoming picture of Laura, and she knocks some stuff off a table and she throws it down, and she picks her down, and she grabs a alcohol bottle and she starts smashing it. Bam, 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 bam. And screaming. And the glass shatters, but the picture doesn't get destroyed. And she's constantly bashing it. And the whole time this is going on, there's this backwards skipping noise. And so some of the glass is coming up and going back down. And it's like this thing inside of Sarah is pissed that things didn't go the way she wanted it to. This must be Judy, I'm assuming.
All the screaming noises we were hearing were callbacks to Sarah screaming when she found out Laura died. And it's all
the pain and sorrow that this thing won't be able to collect now, I guess, and it's pissed off about it. Then we go to the woods again. Laura's walking with Cooper. He leads her to where they're about to get to the entrance, and we hear the noise from the phonograph from episode 1. And Coop looks at his hand, and Laura's gone, and we hear the wind start to whoosh, and then we hear Laura scream. And it's the same scream from part 2 when she got sucked out of the lodge. And Coop looks into the woods for a painfully long time. And then we fade into the Roadhouse with Julie Cruz singing "The World Spins," and roll credits.
Finally get Julie Cruz in the Roadhouse, and we get absolutely no
introduction, no entire song being
fan
played.
service, no introduction, no original version is played, so she's lip syncing. It's the original version. We catch up halfway through the song, and
yeah, there was a lot of languishing things in lots of episodes, but in this episode it was pretty fast paced for the most part, except for that painfully long look into the woods at the very end when Laura disappeared. Because I'm watching the woods trying to think of something going to pop out or whatever,
Something.
and instead it fades slowly into Julie singing. So that's the end of.
Close curtains, end of show. Nice seeing you later. It was a good run. Oh, one more episode?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's one more part, and I'm not sure if it really fits into the return. This part 17 was basically the end of the return. Good ending. Would have been much better if you'd let Julie sing the whole song. I guess that Julie would sing The World Spins. I'm going to give myself credit
Yeah,
for
you
that.
did. You did.
I also guessed that Cooper was going to be the one to say the past dictates the future.
And then he said it. And you guessed the color scheme.
And I also guessed the color scheme of Rancho Rosa would be black and white.
The man.
I was bunting the whole time.
Yeah. Julie wasn't too happy.
No, there was some stuff on Facebook, and I don't want to smear anybody. Everybody's got a way to look at it. As a Twin Peaks fan, I'm going to laugh about it, and as a Julie Cruz fan, I'm going to feel for her.
I stayed with her on her thread until she left.
She was awesome.
I was reading everything she was reading. She was answering some. She loved my comment that I left her, which was that unfortunate that the Platters got more airtime than you did, Julie, but it's okay. You still look beautiful.
Well, maybe they'll play some Julie songs, in season 4.
See, I can't go there, and I won't go there, and I'm not going to be apologetic about it. We had one season, season 3. This is the opportunity. 18 hours. You have 1 hour left, and everything we got seems like we've retconned the first 2 seasons before the end of part 17. Retcons everything. It didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. You almost got rid of the entire return, and season 1 and 2. In one swoop, just whoosh. None of it happened, because as soon as Coop's face is superimposed, I'm thinking, okay, he's the dreamer. He even said it, we live inside a dream.
Yeah.
And that face was when he was in the lodge. So it was almost like, okay, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I would much rather have coffee with Andy and Lucy and talk to Frank and Bobby and Hawk and spend an afternoon in Twin Peaks than to go run off with Diane looking for Laura or whatever he was doing.
Whatever he was doing. You did what we set out to do. You can't save, to me, you just can't save Laura. You can't. Where are you bringing her?
We're not on 18 yet.
Well, we ended with this, so I'm going to talk about it. He drug her away from getting killed. At that point, she doesn't get killed, but
Bob's still possessing Leland, so if she ever went home,
yeah,
there was the risk of her. So instead of her going into the White Lodge, she gets sucked up and she's gone.
Instead of dying a painful life, I'm going to bring you through here where you can die. I am dead, yet I live, I guess.
I don't know. Did she enter the lodge at 17 years old? Did she get sucked from that point into the Black Lodge?
I mean, she died, but instead of dying, she still went where she went, except her meaning was meaningless.
See, my theory is she got sucked from that point at 17 years old into the life of Carrie Page. And then she lived the rest of her life as Carrie Page.
Unaware that she was Laura.
Unaware that she was actually Laura.
So Leland and Sarah just woke up with no kid.
So in reality, Laura never came home that night. No telling what happened. Leland might have killed himself because he couldn't torture Laura anymore. Sarah ended up getting possessed by Mrs. Chalfont, who sold the house to Mrs. Tremont.
Yeah, Sarah called herself the Chalfont when she sold the house.
Right.
But that's part 18 too.
Right.
Get to that.
But we were talking about the walk, so she did disappear. Laura disappeared. Cooper never brought her home into the White Lodge. She got sucked up right on the outside with that damn noise. It's Andy.
That's that was my guess. Way off. But this is a precursor. It's a cliffhanger. We got one more part to do, and we will be touching back on this very end of this episode all through the next one because it kind of lends itself there.
So part 17 I'm good with. I'm fine with it. I thought it was cheesy the way that Freddy took out Bob. I didn't think
Even that lasted too long.
I didn't think that was what Freddy's destiny should have been to take care of Bob. Wasn't that the whole point of the first 2 seasons?
The whole point of
Couldn't
Laura.
do it and right.
And save Laura after Freddy did it.
And I hated that Cooper didn't spend any time as Cooper with the sheriff's department at all.
None.
As soon as everything was sewn up, he decided to skip ship and go, electricity warp with Diane and Coop into the belly of the Great Northern, where they could enter into a room and enter into the lodge again. I mean, if you're going to go back into the lodge, just have some coffee first with your friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my biggest gripe.
Ask how's Audrey or something. But we still have an hour left. So at this point, it's like maybe he'll come to a better place where there'll be no Red, and there'll be Bobby and Shelley are together, and Laura will be happily something.
Okay, so we've got the rest of our lives to think about all this and talk about it.
And that's just part 17.
Yeah, we still got 18 to go. So thanks for watching this review. Try to find our review for part 18 so you can see how we sew this up. And there'll be more discussions about Twin Peaks on this channel.
Yeah, we still got our thoughts we thought you didn't think of for both parts.
And
probably
we'll probably be talking about it for a while after this.
Later in the week, we'll do that.
And the book will come out in October. And so there's way more Twin Peaks to talk about. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10. We're going to talk about other movies and TV shows as well. Only things that are cool. We're looking at Ash vs. Evil Dead and possibly Stand Against Evil and possibly Stranger Things.
Possibly American Horror Story Cult.
Maybe.
Yeah. I've got a viewing date on Tuesday. This Tuesday.
And we're also going to do David Lynch stuff and more Twin Peaks stuff. So thanks so much for watching. I'm Joe.
I'm James.
This has been Twin Peaks Twin Perspective, and catch us on our review for part 18. Until then.
Right, if you see 18, make sure you click on Rosenfield and find 17 first. Don't do like I did. I watched a bunch of 18s and realized, oops.
Okay, we'll see you in the trees. Bye.